Hello everyone, welcome to EDST5888 project. My name is Kerry Barnett and I am the course convener for this particular course. My role is simply to coordinate your projects with your supervising lecturers and to ensure that proposals are in on time and also that your research reports actually get marked. Just to give you a bit of an overview of this course, basically the purpose is to provide you with an opportunity to build on or extend those interests that you've actually developed in your specialist area of education. And we do this, or we allow you to do this by by engaging in a small self-directed capstone project, normally in small groups with other groups from the same specialisation. It's important to realise that your project must clearly represent 6 units of credit. This course is undertaken within a coursework program. As a result of that, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later on, your project does not require ethics approval. However, if you are a student that has a WAM of 75 plus and are intending to pursue a higher degree research track, that is towards a PhD, we do encourage you to actually apply for formal ethics approval through UNSW, particularly if you are doing a project that involves human participants. Best idea with this is to actually discuss this with your supervising lecturer as early as possible when you start this program. Course aims. These are the course aims. Basically, we want you to be able to demonstrate to us what you've learned in your program. Being able to actually identify the particular literature that you're interested in, having a critical eye on that, and being able to engage in literature searches that will enable you to develop a investigation of a particular area that you're actually interested in. The course does have some prerequisites, so please make sure that you have met all of these. Firstly, you need to have at least 24 units of credit, which means that you would have completed 4 courses at the master's level, and you also need to have completed one of the research methods courses or be completing a research methods course in the School of Education. The next slide just gives you some examples of appropriate projects. If you've actually gone on to Moodle and had a look at the information that has been provided for you there, you will find that there are a few projects from last semester that have been uploaded just to give you an idea of what other students have actually done. Those particular projects have been selected from students who did particularly well in their projects, so you're looking at HD and distinction level projects with those projects that have been uploaded for you to Moodle. But here's some examples of the different types of projects that can be done. So an evaluation is an appropriate project. Maybe you're developing or trialing something. Maybe you're developing a program that you're going to actually implement in your workplace in the following year that is suitable. Small scale action research projects, particularly where you may want to investigate a particular instructional strategy. Maybe you are interested in a particular type of technique. Maybe you're interested in student behaviour, so you're actually interested in investigating that. Another one might be a case study. Case study is a really useful approach to use in a small project like this, particularly in special ed or in gifted. You can actually do case studies of learners in specific teaching situations or where specific teaching strategies have been used. Theoretical critique is another option, and we have a number of students that have pursued this area in the past. meta-analysis or meta-synthesis, and then basically any other project that would meet the requirements of postgraduate level work. That needs to be intellectually demanding. It needs to require quite a bit of reading of the research and professional literature. Here are some important points to note about the project. It's a small-scale capstone project, and I'm sorry to reiterate this, but I can't stress this enough. You have approximately 12 weeks in which to propose this project, undertake the project, do the analysis, and actually do the writing up. Don't underestimate the amount of time that it actually takes you to do all of those things. But it's undertaken within this 12-week period. It's undertaken within a coursework framework. But a couple of things. You still are expected to ensure that you have permission from your principal or your workplace supervisor. To that end, you will find on Moodle that a pro forma has been placed there for you to get your principal or work supervisor to sign, agreeing to having your project conducted in your school. That particular approval is required to be submitted to me by the date that the proposal is due to be submitted, which is Monday the 13th of August. You also are required to obtain consent of all participants, and that might include parents and caregivers as is needed. Essentially what we're wanting you to do is follow standard ethical protocols for conducting research, and I have recommended a text for this particular course, and that can actually be used to find out about all of that kind of thing. Next slide is about the student learning outcomes. Basically, the course is designed to enable you to demonstrate in-depth knowledge of your particular specialist area. It's about you demonstrating to us that you can actually identify sources in the theoretical and the research literature that might help you to be able to shed a little bit more light on that area of specialism within education. Then we want you to be able to show us that you could develop an appropriate methodology in which to investigate that, and then that ability to be able to analyse and interpret and report the findings for the area that you have actually decided to investigate. This slide details the program learning outcomes. Essentially, we have 6 program learning outcomes, and the program learning outcomes cover both the MEd program and the MEd lead program. The highlighted areas on the slide are the areas that this particular course addresses. So, demonstrating an advanced understanding of a particular field of education that relates to your specialist area of study, being able to engage in research-based learning, being able to then communicate that effectively, and being able to do this particular project independently are really important aspects of the outcomes that this particular course is designed to address. And of course, the most important thing at the end is that this needs to be done according to ethical practices. In terms of delivery, this is a self-directed course, so that means that you won't have a regular weekly class with a lecturer. A lot of your work will be done independently and maybe online. We actually suggest that you contact your supervising lecturer at the beginning of the semester. The list of projects and supervising lecturers has been placed on Moodle for you, so please go to Moodle, look up that list. I've listed your student ID number, the name of the lecturer, and also their email address. So take the initiative to email them straight away so that you can set up a meeting with them to be able to discuss your proposal. So in the first week or two, discussing your proposal, another meeting about the middle of the semester where you're probably getting ready to actually collect your data, to analyse your data, and then a final meeting towards the end of the semester. These meetings do not have to be face-to-face. You can set up phone meetings or Skype meetings or Zoom meetings with your supervising lecturer. I suggest you speak to them and you negotiate that with them. And then the final point there is the kinds of things that are discussed in these particular meetings. And there's some examples there. For example, in the first meeting you'll probably be discussing your project proposal, and they will be talking to you about whether it's feasible within the time, and they may make some suggestions to you. You can also talk to them about whether you may need ethics approval. The next slide shows course content and structure. So essentially, we're still in pre-semester. This is week 0. Next week, contacting your supervisor, arranging that meeting. Week 2 to 4, starting to work independently, starting to refine your literature review, and getting your proposal ready for submission in week 5. Week 6 to 8, more independent work. Around about week 9, maybe a meeting with your supervising lecturer to review your progress. Week 10 to 11, contact with your supervising lecturer if you need it. And then week 13, final submission of your project. However, I have made the date due for this project a little bit later than that. It's around about it is the 5th of November. I have specified a number of resources that may be helpful for you. The first resource is one that I came across fairly recently called Doing Your Research Project. The bookshop has it. The library has a copy of it as well. I'm sure that you will find this a really useful addition to your professional library. So I recommend you going and purchasing this. It gives a very good general coverage of how to go about doing your research project. The second book that I recommend is Cohen and Mannion's Research Methods in Education. Very comprehensive, and it's been around for many years. I actually used it in my PhD when I was writing up my chapter 4 on my research methodology. Really a very useful book, and treats each methodology in depth. This book is actually available as an e-book in the library, so you would not have to purchase it. You could in actual fact borrow it online, so that helps a little bit with finances. The next slide pertains to assessment and the task, the length, the weight, learning outcomes, and the due dates. Please note, when you submit your project proposal to Moodle, you must have it approved by your supervising lecturer, and it must be accompanied with that letter of organisation support. Now, just a word about the approval from the supervising lecturer. You will need to request an email from them that they have actually approved your proposal. And you will also need to get that letter of organisation support signed by your work supervisor or by your principal, with regard to them being happy to have your project occurring in their particular organisation. With both of those documents, I will need you to attach them to an email and send them to me. Please don't scan any of those, because what you will find is that Moodle will not pick it up and you won't be able to submit your proposal. So please make sure that you send those two things to me via email. And be aware, 1,000 words plus or minus 10%. And this is a hurdle requirement, which means it has to be submitted, otherwise it may affect your final grade in the course. The second assessment task is a project report, 8 to 10,000 words. This is worth 100% of your assessment, and it is due on Monday the 5th of November. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the first assessment. I've already mentioned that this is a 1,000-word project proposal. There's no strict format in writing a research proposal. However, generally they include the elements that I have actually listed on this slide. So you need a title for your project. Please make sure that that matches what is actually in the project. That's an important point to make. The next element to include is some sort of background and the nature of the problem that you are investigating. So it may be poor student performance, it could be poor student behaviour, or you may be wanting to evaluate a particular type of teaching strategy in your teaching. These are all examples of problems that could be investigated. Then you need to state the aims and objectives of your project. As much as possible, research questions, they're really important in terms of determining your research methodology. Your research questions will most likely come from your literature review. Remember that you've only got 1,000 words, so you want a very short, brief literature review at this point. And then we move down to the research methodology, making sure that you have included the approach that you're going to use. Is it quantitative, is it qualitative, or is it a mixed method approach? How you're actually going to generate that data, how you're going to gather it, and then how you're going to analyse it. And in the methodology, you need to be providing a justification for why you would use this particular approach. And that includes indicating the theoretical framework that actually informs your study. And the final aspect to include with regard to the methodology is your ethical considerations and how you are actually going to, if you're going to use humans, how you're going to obtain their consent and permission to be involved. The final two things are your research timeline, really important, and you'll find that Cohen and Mannion actually recommend using some sort of a planning matrix to help you work that timeline out, because it actually where you identify your research questions, and then from there you identify your sources, your method of data collection and your analysis, and then you can get a better idea as to what sort of time is going to be involved. The expected contribution, please make sure that you don't overgeneralise here. Expected contribution, you can, with such a small scale project, it will not contribute to the field of the specialist area that you're actually sort of looking at. It will more than likely contribute to some aspects of practice within your own professional work context. So please don't overgeneralise and say it's going to make massive changes in the field. It will make a contribution, but it will make a contribution within the context in which the study has been undertaken. And of course the final thing is to include your references using APA style, and there's quite a bit of information around on that you can access through the UNSW Learning Centre. Please note that we have provided a pro forma of the proposal on Moodle, and I've provided that separately there in case you just wanted to download it and expand and add your proposal on that sheet. The second thing is that there's a pro forma letter of support from the organisation also available on Moodle. And the third thing that you need to include is that email from your supervising lecturer, and all of these things need to be signed and sent to me. Just want to talk briefly about this. overlaps. And what do I mean by that? I know that a number of you have done classroom-based research and also qualitative methods as the research methods course for your program. And I also am aware that in both of those courses the final assessment task is to prepare a research proposal. Some of you will be bringing that across to do in EDST5888. I want to talk about the extent of overlap that is actually allowed between those two, the research method course proposal and the EDST5888 proposal. It is expected that there'll be some overlap, but not 100% overlap, because I'm fairly certain that the project proposal that you had in the research methods course is very large. For this particular course, if you're going to use that proposal, you're going to have to scale it right down and refine it. So the match in terms of Turnitin with your similarity index should not be more than 50%. If it's more than 50%, then you have not scaled it down and you have not taken on board the feedback that has been given to you after you have submitted that assignment for grading and for marking. So please make sure no more than 50%. Now on Turnitin, the settings have been set so that you can actually submit your proposal and check the similarity index before so you can submit it. If it's too high, you can pull it off, rework it, and then submit it again, so long as that all happens before you use the due date. The second thing I want to talk about is the overlap between the 5888 proposal and the 5888 project in terms of that Turnitin similarity index. Again, the proposal is related to the project, so we do expect that there will be some overlap here. But if it's more than 50%, then what it means is that in terms of the project, it has not included enough new information on the research findings, on discussion of those findings, linking it to the literature, and then making conclusions. So therefore, again, you'll be able to submit and see. If it's over 50%, may I suggest you withdraw it and then you rework it and make sure that it's less than that amount, because it does indicate that that not enough has been done in terms of those research findings. The next slide is assessment 2. So basically the 8 to 10,000 report, which includes everything. Please take note that that word limit, plus or minus 10%, includes your references and appendices. And it needs to be written in a way that's appropriate for the particular study. Also take note that it won't be your supervising lecturer who will be marking this. It will be somebody else within the school that has expertise in that particular area. Examples of reports have actually been placed on Moodle for you to have a look at. Okay, and the last thing I just wanted to talk to you about was these 3 common mistakes that students make with these particular projects. The first one is making it too big, wanting to do too much. Remember, you only have a certain time limit. One of the things you need to be able to demonstrate to us is that you can propose a feasible project. That is, it can be done within the time period that you've got allocated. So if you have a project proposal now, begin to scale it way back. Think very carefully about what you can actually do. My suggestion would be to just use one method of data collection, whether that be interviews or a small questionnaire or observations, but limit it right down. The thing is that you can use it perhaps as a pilot study for a larger project later on, but for this particular course, it needs to be small. It's better to keep it small and drill down than go too big and too broad and skim the surface. The second mistake I think students make is that they underestimate the amount of time. You need to begin working on this now. It takes time to search the literature. It takes time to come up with research questions. It takes time to actually go and develop your instruments, go and interview people if that's what it is, or do observations or do surveys, and then it takes time to actually collate that and analyse it and put it into a form that is going to be suitable to report in terms of your project. The third thing is that students tend to overestimate their capacity to be able to do this kind of project. Quite important that you think very carefully about the type of data that's going to be generated, from the type of and the type of method that you're going to use, and you think very carefully about whether you actually have the capacity, if it's interviews for example, to be able to undertake a content analysis, if you have the capacity to undertake some sort of statistical analysis of a survey, if that's the method that you're using to collect your data. Be very aware that you need to demonstrate that the project is feasible, and that doesn't just refer to time, it also refers to you being able to execute every single step of the project. And I guess one more thing, if I was going to add one more thing, and that would be to keep in touch with your supervisor. Many students do not maintain that contact with their supervising lecturer. Your supervising lecturer can provide support and help as you work through the steps of the project. If you have any questions at all, you can send me an email. Thanks.